Welcome to Podcast Summaries, where every week we break down powerful ideas from 8 to 10 top podcasts to help you grow, heal, and thrive while saving time. If you find this summary helpful, please subscribe. Your support keeps this journey going. Here is a rundown on how to build unstoppable confidence, featuring Jocko Willink by Chris Williamson. Jocko Willink's approach to building confidence is rooted in humility. He believes that acknowledging what you don't know is a powerful way to gain confidence. By admitting your limitations, you lower the stakes and the pressure to perform. This mindset shift allows you to approach challenges with a clearer head and a more realistic expectation of what you can achieve. For Jocko, confidence comes from experience, but it's also about being okay with not knowing everything. He recalls a time when he was in a meeting and didn't know what to do. So he simply said, "I'm not sure. What do you think?" This humility earned him more respect from his team, rather than less. Jocko's philosophy is that you can't do everything at once, and you need to prioritize what's most important. He uses the example of a business, where you might need to focus on one department over another. It's about making trade-offs and recognizing that you can't be everything to everyone. When it comes to decision-making, Jocko advises people to be more humble and acknowledge what they don't know. Jocko also talks about the importance of preparation and training. He uses the example of bow hunting, where you need to train extensively to prepare for the shot. But when you're in the moment, you need to switch into a confident mindset and trust in your training. It's about finding that balance between humility and confidence and knowing when to switch between the two. Ultimately, Jocko's approach to confidence is about being authentic and true to yourself. It's about recognizing your limitations and being okay with not knowing everything. By embracing this mindset, you can build confidence that's rooted in humility and a willingness to learn. Jocko notes that Kobe's post is a great example of how to deal with fear and uncertainty, and how to find the silver lining in a difficult situation. Jocko's own experiences in combat have taught him that fear is a natural response, but it's how you respond to it that matters. He recalls a time when he was driving to a target in a Humvee, and his mind was racing with worst-case scenarios. But as soon as he stopped the vehicle and got out, all those fears disappeared. He realized that the fear of the unknown is often worse than the reality of the situation.
Chris Williamson asks Jocko if he's always had this ability to lean into fear, or if it's something he's developed over time.
Jocko responds that it's a combination of both. He's always been someone who was willing to take risks, but he's also learned to recognize and manage his fear through experience. Jocko shares a story about a kid's book he wrote, called Mikey and the Dragons, where the main character has to face his fears and overcome them. He notes that the fear of the unknown is a common theme in many people's lives, and that it's often the fear of what might happen, rather than the reality of the situation, that holds us back.
Chris Williamson asks Jocko if being in firefights and driving in Humvees has made everything else seem less fear-inducing.
Jocko responds that it's given him a different perspective on fear. He knows that the worst-case scenario is unlikely to happen, and that he can always find a way to overcome it. Jocko also talks about the importance of perspective in dealing with fear. He notes that when he was in combat, he would often have to reassure his team that everything was going to be okay, even when things seemed chaotic and uncertain. He shares a story about a time when his team was facing a difficult situation, and he had to remind them that no one was going to die, and that they would get through it together.
Chris Williamson asks Jocko what normal people don't understand about what a modern firefight is like.
Jocko responds that it's the chaos and confusion of the situation that's often missing from portrayals in movies and media. He notes that it's not slick or sexy, but rather a messy and unpredictable situation that requires leaders to take a step back and make decisions quickly. Jocko's experiences in combat have given him a unique perspective on fear and uncertainty, and he's learned to approach it with a sense of confidence and conviction. He notes that it's not about being fearless, but rather about being able to manage your fear and take action despite. He recalls how, in the heat of battle, time can seem to slow down, and the senses can become heightened. However, this state of hyperarousal can't be sustained indefinitely. As he puts it, it's like a roller coaster. The adrenaline rush eventually wears off, and the body needs to recover.
Chris Williamson asks Jocko about how he managed the ups and downs of adrenaline during combat missions.
Jocko explains that it's not about being constantly locked on, but rather about having the discipline to follow protocols and take care of oneself, even when the adrenaline wears off. He notes that people get complacent in combat, just like in any other situation, and that it's essential to stay vigilant and focused. Jocko agrees, citing the example of snipers, who need to be patient and calm, versus breachers, who require a short attention span and quick reflexes. He also mentions that some people are naturally more emotional or hyperactive, which can affect their performance in certain roles.
Chris Williamson shares his own experience with genetic testing, which revealed that he's not well suited to jobs with huge peaks and troughs of adrenaline.
Jocko is intrigued by this and wonders if he would have similar results. He notes that there's no genetic test for getting into the SEAL teams, but rather a process of self-selection and adaptation. The conversation also touches on the idea that expectations can be more powerful than genetics. Jocko mentions the monster experiment, where kids were told they had a speech impediment, and it actually became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Chris Williamson shares a similar study where people were told they had a genetic mutation that would affect their athletic performance, and it impacted their actual performance. Jocko discusses the concept of discipline equals freedom, which he believes is often misunderstood. It's a mantra that resonates deeply, especially when considering the power of small, incremental changes in our daily habits. These tiny decisions, though seemingly insignificant, can snowball into monumental outcomes, both positive and negative. The trajectory of our lives can be altered in profound ways, often without us even realizing it until years later. As Chris Williamson points out, it's the tiny improvements that create incredible change, not the massive quantum leaps we often expect.
This is a lesson Jocko has learned firsthand, particularly in his jiu-jitsu training. He recalls the feeling of not wanting to train, but knowing that the sense of accomplishment and confidence that comes with it is worth pushing through the initial resistance. This idea of momentum is crucial. When we make good decisions, we create a ripple effect that can carry us forward, even when motivation is lacking. Jocko emphasizes the importance of taking action, even when we don't feel like it, because it's in those moments that we build discipline and create opportunities for growth. But what about when we're stuck in a rut, facing a string of bad decisions or circumstances? Jocko's advice is to prioritize and execute, to focus on solving the biggest problem at hand. It's about taking small steps, breaking down the task into manageable parts, and celebrating tiny victories along the way. It's a reminder that progress often starts with the smallest, most mundane actions. Jocko's own experience with jiu-jitsu training illustrates this point. He recalls telling people that they need to train until they submit someone, not just to prove their progress, but to experience the sense of reward and motivation that comes with it. It's a lesson that can be applied to any area of life. We need to take action, make progress, and celebrate our small wins in order to build momentum and confidence. The conversation also touches on the idea that our habits and decisions can have a profound impact on our lives, often in ways we can't even imagine. It's a reminder that our choices have consequences, and that we need to be mindful of the trajectory we're creating for ourselves.
As the conversation continues, Chris Williamson reflects on the price we need to pay to achieve our goals. He shares a story about Cam Haines, a guest on his show, who pushed his sons to be extreme performers, but later questioned whether he had pushed them too far. It's a poignant reminder that our pursuit of excellence can come at a cost, and that we need to be aware of the sacrifices we're making in order to achieve our goals.
When a fighter is in a 10-week training camp, they're pushing themselves to the limit, but Jocko knows that sometimes it's necessary to take a step back and give them a day off. He recalls a time when he told a fighter to take a day off after noticing they were overtraining, and it's a lesson that translates to life outside of the gym. If you're feeling burned out, it's okay to take a breather, but it's also important to be objective about when you need rest and when you need to push through. Jocko's approach to decision-making is also worth noting. He's an iterative decision-maker, meaning he makes small decisions at a time, rather than going all in on a single chance. This approach allows him to explore new opportunities and adjust his approach as needed. It's a mindset that can be applied to many areas of life, from business to personal relationships. The conversation also touches on the importance of having a sense of urgency in life. Jocko believes that people often waste years trying to figure out what they want to do, when in reality, they should be taking action and making things happen. It's a reminder that life is short and that we should be making the most of the time we have. The idea of comfort being a slow death is also discussed, and Jocko believes that it's essential to balance rest and recovery with the need to push ourselves and take risks. He shares a story about training MMA fighters and how he would often tell them to take a day off when they were overtraining, but also emphasizes the importance of getting back to work the next day. It's a delicate balance, but one that's necessary for growth and progress. The conversation also touches on the idea of objective self-assessment and how it's essential to be able to look at ourselves and our performance objectively. Jocko shares a story about how he would often look at his fighters' performance numbers and know when they needed a day off, but notes that it's harder to do the same for ourselves. Jocko notes that people love to watch documentaries about athletes and fighters who are pushing themselves to the extreme, and that it's a testament to the human spirit. He also shares his thoughts on the U.S. Army's recruitment numbers and the role of Pete Hegseth in driving change within the organization. He believes that the rapid advancements in technology will continue to change the face of war, making it increasingly difficult to predict what the next decade will bring. The use of drones, robots, and cyber warfare will become more prevalent, and the traditional notion of a soldier on the ground will need to adapt to these new realities. As Jocko points out, the principles of warfare remain the same, but the tools and tactics used to execute them will continue to evolve. He emphasizes the importance of keeping an open mind and being willing to adapt to new situations, rather than getting caught up in a single idea or approach. The conversation also touches on the idea of a cyber force, a separate branch of the military dedicated to cyber warfare and information operations. Jocko believes that this is an area where the U.S. should be focusing its efforts, as it is a key component of modern warfare. The discussion also delves into the concept of knowingness, the idea that people often believe they have all the answers before even considering the question. This can lead to a lack of intellectual curiosity and a resistance to updating one's beliefs, even in the face of new information.
Jocko and Chris Williamson both acknowledge that this is a major problem in today's world, where misinformation and disinformation can spread quickly. As the conversation continues, it becomes clear that the future of warfare will be shaped by a complex interplay of technological advancements, human psychology, and the need for adaptability.
Jocko's insights offer a glimpse into the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead, and the importance of staying ahead of the curve in this rapidly changing landscape. He's a man who's seen his fair share of conflict, and it's given him a certain clarity on the human condition.
When Chris Williamson asks him about the state of the world, Jocko's response is measured, but telling. He talks about the importance of having an open mind, of not buying into any one narrative, and of understanding that the world is a complex, messy place. He acknowledges the darkness that exists, but also the beauty that can be found in the midst of it. He talks about how the U.S. military thought they could win the war by killing more of the enemy, but they didn't realize that the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese had a different perspective on sacrifice.
This, Jocko says, is what we're seeing around the world today. Different sides with different values and different willingness to sacrifice.
Chris Williamson chimes in with a fascinating story about the OSS, the precursor to the CIA, and their unorthodox tactics during World War II. He talks about how they tried to demoralize the Japanese by creating glow-in-the-dark foxes, and how they even considered injecting Hitler's vegetables with female sex hormones to undermine his masculinity.
Jocko laughs at the absurdity of it all, but also acknowledges that these tactics are preferable to bombs and violence.
As the conversation winds down, Chris asks Jocko about his upcoming projects, including a dramatized version of one of his books starring Chris Pratt.
Jocko is enthusiastic about the project and talks about how it's going to help a lot of kids.
Chris teases him about being a triple threat, a former Navy SEAL, a best-selling author, and now a Hollywood executive producer.
Jocko takes it in stride, but it's clear that he's proud of what he's accomplished. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, check out YouTube channel, and just remember, subscription is only £1 or $1 per month. Leave a comment or review. Until next time, happy listening.